What's going on, everyone? Nick or Catalyst here. Thank you so much for tuning into this video as always. So day one of the beta has come to an end, and I played pretty much all day yesterday, barring some breaks for food and to work on some homework and other adult activities that one might have. But yeah, I played probably 7 to 8 hours of the beta yesterday, and I've gotten enough information from playing the beta with my squad, with my team, and by myself to kind of form some concrete opinions about the game thus far and the beta overall. I know that this isn't the final game, obviously. That's what betas are for, is to give us a close representation of the final product, and then have us work out the kinks and discover the bugs, so to speak. So like I've been saying, I've spent a lot of time with this game, and I've gotten enough feedback for myself to kind of form some concrete opinions about the game, and that's what I'm going to share with you all today. I know that the game, or rather the beta, is early access, so not everybody's getting a chance to play it right now, so I'm going to do my best to give my honest opinion and thoughts about what you can be expecting when some of you, I'm assuming, try to play the beta in a couple days. So I have a couple of bullet points, a lot of bullet points actually, and this is an unscripted video in case you haven't been able to tell yet. And I thought about making a gigantic script for this video, but I really thought that it would just be best to write down some bullet points and take notes while I was playing the game, and then go back and reflect on them later, just in case I happen to forget anything. And that's what we're gonna do now. So make sure that you drop a like on the video if you enjoy it. Make sure you share this on Reddit. Make sure that you share it around if you enjoy it. Let's get a conversation started about this beta and Battlefield 5 and everything that DICE has to offer for us. So if you are new here, subscribe and turn on post notifications, and let's get into it. So I've taken the liberty of organizing this like any other person would really, and forming all of my many bullet points into 3 sections, starting with the good things I like about the beta thus far, and then transitioning into things that I'm 50-50 on, the things that I'm not sure whether I like or hate 100%, and then of course diving into the things that I do not, or excuse me, cannot stand about the game. And make sure you stick around till the end of the video, because at the end I have some general observations about the game that you all definitely need to take into account, because this game, for all intents and purposes, is probably the most unique and interesting Battlefield game to date when it comes to innovation and new features that completely change the game when it comes to what we have been accustomed to over the past few years. So with that being said, I'm going to try and get through all of this as fast as I can for your convenience, but also do my best to make sure everything is as clear and thorough as I can make it. So let's start with the good things about Battlefield 5 with the gunplay. Now, the gunplay is arguably the most important part of any first-person shooter, and I'm happy to report that for the most part the gunplay is very strong in Battlefield 5, as it usually is in most entries in the franchise. But the reason I'm making sure to highlight this is because in Battlefield 5 we return to having a predictable and learnable recoil pattern in the game, and this is something that I've been looking forward to for a long time, because the random bullet spread in Battlefield 1 is quite frankly one of the more annoying mechanics in the game, and I could frankly go on for hours about how ridiculous it is that somebody can potentially lose a gunfight just because their bullet spread wasn't favorable to them. So that is a thing of the past, and Battlefield 5's gunplay is really quite addicting, because you want to learn the recoil of these weapons. You want to find the gun that you just gel with the best, and the gunplay in this game enables you to do so quite well, and that greatly increases the replayability of the game, but it also increases the difficulty of the game as well. It is not only very satisfying, but it feels very crisp along with the time to kill. And the time to kill is something that I think a lot of people were most worried about coming into this game, and who could really blame them, right? I mean, from the gameplay that we had seen, this time to kill looked extremely quick, and it certainly is quick, don't get me wrong, but I was actually quite surprised to find that I really enjoy the TTK in Battlefield 5, I think it works brilliantly well with the kind of tactical element that DICE is bringing to Battlefield, and I think that changing it all would really screw up a lot of the other things in the game that make Battlefield 5 work so well. Headshots, feel like they really pack a punch this year, and I mean, you can just really insta-melt people if your aim is good enough to land those headshots. And one of the things that makes the time to kill work so well is the pacing of Battlefield 5. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is quite frankly my favorite part of the game right now, because it brings the mental game into Battlefield. You know, I'm enjoying having to learn the maps and prioritize my positioning a little bit more, and I'm enjoying that tactical nature of Battlefield 5's pacing. One of the most entertaining aspects of the game, especially in the eyes of a competitive player like myself, I really enjoy outsmarting my opponent just as much as I like outgunning him. And with Battlefield 5, the pacing forces you to not only play a lot slower, but it allows you to plan your rotations and your runs and your pushes to get the most out of your life on the map. And this is such a contrast and change when you take a look at the style of Battlefield 1, where you could run anywhere on the map with little to no consequences, goes balls deep to the wall, and more often than not get yourself a kill or two before going to respawn screen and, you know, doing it all over again. I think the thing I love most about the pacing is that it brings such a mental element to the game that has been lacking for such a long time, and it really keeps me actively engaged in what's going on, because so often while playing Battlefield 1, it got to a point where I would kind of, you know, switch into autopilot mode, and I cruised through games without thinking much about it. And that's just the type of game that Battlefield 1 was. It was really just a no mental, no mind game, just run and shoot, and, you know, nothing else to it. And now with Battlefield 5, you aren't just running out in the middle of nowhere and becoming a super soldier. You need to think about what you're doing, because bad decisions will get you killed pretty quickly. But in the event that you do get killed, there is the new revive system, and this is probably my favorite new feature to the game, because revives finally have some added meaning and weight and purpose besides going up to somebody and, you know, pressing a button. Now revives require effort and commitment, and I love that. I love that medics revive faster, or at least the meta class. That gives incentive for people to play the medic class, and I also really like how your squad mates can now revive you as well. It really highlights the squad dynamic that makes Battlefield such a cool team game to play. And now when you go down and maybe you were the final tray to kill in a gunfight, now your squad mates can come and pick you up, whereas in past titles you had to get lucky and hope that there was a medic nearby. So good on you, DICE, for evolving this revive system to making it really cool. Although I will say that there's a pretty nasty glitch and bug going around right now that when you revive somebody, you switch kits with them accidentally as well, and that's super annoying. But I'm sure that, you know, that'll be fixed by the time that the game launches. I'd hope that it would be fixed, but that's what betas are for, right, after all. So I would like to see more time between seeing your killer and transitioning into the bleeding out screen, because right now I think it's way too short. And not only is the time a little too short, the outline of the player is hard to see in the short time that you can see where he is. So there have been a couple of times where I've gotten killed by the same person in the same spot because I cannot locate where he is based on the kill screen, and that's just a little bit frustrating to me. But don't let that distract you from the fact that the revive system overall is very, very good. Moving on to the movement system. Now, admittedly, this needs some work because it's not perfect. There are a lot of buggy things going on with this movement system right now, and it does feel a little bit unpolished and clunky. But with the movement system and what they've got going on right now, the slide, the crouch running, and the prone sliding are all really good additions and feel extremely smooth when they are working, and that's a pretty big asterisk. But the movement so far has been good, but I would really like to see DICE polish all the movement before launch. And last but not least, we have the squad leader rewards. I think that these are a nice but subtle addition to the game, and I think that they are pretty well balanced as well. You know, I was afraid that V2 rockets would be getting spammed down on my head all the time, but DICE has done a pretty nice job of balancing that, and I also think it's really cool that I can call in supplies as well, although the usefulness on that will be tested with time, considering how easily you can die in this game. So now moving on to the stuff that I'm kind of iffy on, and here we are going to start with the ammo and health regeneration, or the lack thereof in the beta, and I'm strongly leaning towards this system being very, very bad. The only reason that I do have this in the middle area is because I do see the reasoning behind this. You know, it's supposed to encourage squad play, and it's supposed to create teamwork, and more importantly, it's supposed to make you feel like you are doing something important when you are not on the front lines. But with that all being said, DICE needs to make some changes here, because because we are really not given enough ammo, and especially when you're using weapons like the STG or the EMP, that ammo goes quickly, and the ammo that you can pick up from dead bodies is simply not enough. I think you only get like 25% of whatever a full clip would be, maybe a tad more, maybe a tad less. Now I'm sure the counter argument here would be, well, this is your fault that you don't have enough ammo, and to a certain extent, yes, but I literally feel like I'm begging on a street corner for ammo sometimes. Like I'm a homeless man on the side of the street with a sign that says, "Will suck dick for ammo." I mean, it's ridiculous. I could be doing my job for my team, you know, slaying on the objective, getting a bunch of quick kills, and be completely out of ammo. Or, you know, maybe I'm on a huge flank and get a few kills, but I couldn't push up because I have no ammo. And that's when it becomes a problem for me, because why should I be penalized for being aggressive and playing the objective instead of camping my ass off near an ammo cache? Not to mention that some of my deaths are only because I am low on ammo, and had I had enough ammo, that player would probably not have killed me, which is extremely frustrating. And that's where I kind of draw the line. When it impedes me from doing my job and playing the objective just because you want to restrict my ammo, that's where the issues come in, especially when you see an ammo pouch on the ground and your only choice to survive is to go and get that pouch, and it ends up getting you killed anyways. And the same thing kind of goes for the health regeneration. I think it needs a slight buff or something like that. Maybe have it to where it fully regenerates health the first time you take damage, but every time you take damage after that, you don't regenerate. Because again, I could clear an entire objective for my team and be on low health and then die randomly in one shot because there is absolutely no health around. And I know people are probably saying, well, that's what your squad is for, you know, to give you health and ammo. I'm not sure how many public lobbies you've been in, but the odds of you finding a competent medic or a competent support player are about as slim to none. Something desperately needs to be done about the ammo situation in the game. Either give us an extra magazine at the start or greatly buff the amount of ammo that you get from fallen enemies. Next thing is the weapon upgrade tree, and this is more of a question rather than a critique, because I do like that upgrade tree idea, but I found out later in my playthrough yesterday that once you branch down a certain path, you cannot go back and unlock the items on the other side of the skill tree, and I found that to be quite odd. So I'm not sure if that is bugged or if that is a purposeful choice, but if that is done on purpose, why do this to us? It makes no sense, you know. I'm also kind of disappointed to see that there is no advanced customization of your weapon in terms of recoil direction and weapon zoom on your sights. That was one of my favorite things about the weapons in Battlefield 1, because it allowed you to have greater control over your recoil in multiple aspects. And with the return of predictable recoil, I thought we might see these things return and that we might get a bunch of different recoils to choose from. Moving on, snipers are extremely strong right now, and I'm not sure what to think of this, because there is no sweet spot in the game. Thank the Lord, hallelujah, praise be to him. The sweet spot is one of the worst ideas that the Battlefield franchise has ever had, but in order to compensate for the no sweet spot mechanic, the headshot hitbox for snipers is a little bit too generous for my liking, and sniping overall is very easy. You know, for myself personally, I used to snipe all the time in Battlefield 1 before I dived into competitive. I haven't sniped in months before trying it in Battlefield 5, and I was absolutely destroying people. So with that being said, I think DICE should take another look at sniping, because if I can do it that well, maybe a lot of better snipers can do it even better than myself, and that could present a problem. As happy as I am to see that the sweet spot is gone, though. I will say that tanks are fun and appear to be well balanced, but planes are still extremely weak and have not seemed to have gotten all that much better since the second alpha. But of course, I'm an infantry player mostly, so for those of you who are pilots out there, if you could let me know in the comment section how the flying is and if it has changed at all, because so far I have not been killed by one single plane, and I'm not necessarily complaining about this, but of course, you know, I am concerned for the rest of you who are pilots who, you know, want the flying to be good. So let me know down in the comments section how things are going in that aspect of the game. I will say that performance-wise, the beta has been hit or miss for me. Now, obviously, the game is not going to run as well on console as it would on PC. You know, we have some aging hardware right now, but I have had a few instances of frames dropping, but not too many to cause, you know, any form of immediate concern. Last thing that I want to touch on before we get to the bad stuff, I want to talk about fortifications. Now, it's not that fortifications are bad or are useless, because I have seen some teams use the fortifications quite extensively and very effectively, but for me personally, I've hardly used fortifications, and that kind of leads me to think of it as a throwaway feature, and I really don't see it as much more than a potential Fortnite-esque, you know, attention grabber, if anything. It's a little too early to write it off completely right now though, but right now I think that it's kind of a waste personally. Now, getting into the things that I really cannot stand about this beta, the first of which being the amount of visual clutter on the screen. It is way too much. You can actually hear me complain about this in the video I posted yesterday, and I know that people have been complaining about it since the first alpha, but if this was the way turned down version of all the visual clutter, then it still needs to be turned another notch down the dial, because on the off chance that the visual particles and clutter have not been touched since the alpha, DICE has got to clean up the game, because having client-side stuff like this will get very old very quickly, and I'm already kind of over it. But that leads me to probably my biggest complaint of this game right now, and that's the fact that it is so difficult to see people in this game. And this applies more to the Narvik map than the Rotterdam map, but it is still extensively difficult to see, and it's not so much a 3D spotting issue, because I actually haven't been missing the 3D spotting that much. I like the callout system that has been ripped straight from Incursions to replace the spotting system in the main game, but it's more of an issue that it's just too damn hard to see people. And I know this is supposed to be immersive and realistic, but you can't just shove realistic game mechanics like lack of vision down a casual gaming franchise's throat, and that's what I feel like DICE is trying to do here, and it's not working. This is so unlike Battlefield that I think it's negatively affecting the game. Part of this has to do with the fact that the uniforms of the soldiers blend in way too easily with pretty much everything in the game. The snow, the trees, the walls on Rotterdam, the guns, the artillery guns, and this was one of my main complaints with Battlefield 1 as well, if you can remember, that the lighting and the color palette of the soldiers were too similar to the point where people could blend into walls way too easily, even if you knew what you were looking for. But I think it's finally gotten a bit too carried away in the beta, and I'm not saying that we need to add 3D spotting to the game, because I don't think it would make things better. I actually think that would make things worse because of how fast you can die in this game. Like, imagine being spotted and having somebody just waiting for you around, you know, a corner. But perhaps just a little red arrow over enemies' heads at a certain distance, or if somebody uses the callout feature and correctly identifies a person's position, point it out on the minimap, or have just the tiniest little red triangle over their head, almost like a single player kind of little "this is an enemy," you know, kind of warning, or perhaps show the enemy player's name in red above their head. Just a little tiny something that makes spotting people challenging, but not, you know, Harvard Law School challenging like it is right now. Next, the gun balancing seems to need some work, because the game is dominated by the STG. Now, I know that the STG is the only automatic assault rifle in the beta at the moment, but that's not a reasonable excuse. I know people like their assault, their full auto assault, but this weapon is too strong right now, and it's by far the strongest weapon in the game, next to the Sten and the EMP in the medic class. I think the M1A1 carbine needs a buff, and the iron sights are just god-awful on that thing. I'd like to see those fixed a little bit, because when you strafe while ADSing, the sights kind of get in the way, and I've been turned on way too many times by an STG user because my iron sights on the M1A1 are shooting me in the foot. When it comes to the two maps in the beta, I love Rotterdam so far, fantastic map. Narvik, this map's not great, and I'm hoping that it's one of the worst maps in the game, like Cyanide Desert turned out to be one of the worst maps in the game when it was in the open beta for Battlefield 1. There's a pretty nasty team balancing bug going on right now. I seem to remember Battlefield 1 had a similar bug. I was part of a 8 on 39 game yesterday, and that was an experience. Please fix that. The support class in general seems a bit underpowered at the moment because of how hard and tedious bipoding is in this game, and that's a pretty big issue. Don't get me wrong, I am thankful that DICE is, not letting bipoding plague this game like it does Battlefield 1 currently, but the support class weapons need to be buffed so that the class becomes more viable. Because right now, nobody wants to play support, and as I said earlier, support is probably the most important class in the game because of how much ammo you are given or how much ammo you are not given. So I'd like to see the support class explored in ways to make it stronger, because I don't think that the main attraction of building fortifications faster is enough of a draw to get people to play the class, especially me, since I haven't bothered with fortifications at all. And last but not least, spawn protection is way too damn strong in this game right now. Extremely strong. Potentially the strongest it's ever been. You know, there have been way too many times in this beta thus far when I'm on a flank and I'm behind the enemy and someone spawns off their teammate and I shoot the guy that just spawned because, you know, he's the most immediate threat, and more often than not, this player has sponged my bullets and has turned around and killed me. And it's not even always on a flank either. I've come into one-on-one gunfights with people who have somebody spawn off of them, and I lose the second gunfight because of how much spawn protection people have. Now, I know that this is a way to prevent some of the BS deaths in the game, but I'm sorry, with how finicky the spawn system is anyways, about having you spawn, and especially with the fact that you can spectate and see exactly what is happening to your squad mates, if you make a bad spawn in the middle of a hot area of a map in the middle of a gunfight and you die immediately, that is your fault, and I don't feel like I should be penalized for being aggressive and actively pushing a flank and potentially dying to said person because of the amount of spawn protection that he has. Now for some general observations about the game thus far, and these are really super general. These are just concrete thoughts that I've gathered over my 7-8 hours of playing the beta. And the first one is that your success in the game as a solo player is really linked to your squad. Bad squads equal having a bad game, and there is no getting around that. If you do not have a squad that is giving you ammo, and if you do not have a medic that is healing you, you are going to have a hard time in this game, and that especially applies to getting revived as well. If your squad mates are complete sacks of potatoes, you are not going to have a good time, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about this because, you know, I think the game at its core is extremely fun, but this can potentially scare people away with having teammates that do not help you out, and it's going to be very, very frustrating for some people. Another thing, this game is very campy and slow, and it's going to be a hard transition from Battlefield 1 for a lot of players, especially players that are used to dominating in Battlefield 1. Now, Battlefield 1 is probably the easiest Battlefield to date. It was very easy for, you know, players to get high kill games and generally dominate matches. That's not going to happen in Battlefield 5. It's going to be a very hard transition for some of those players, and I already know some of those pub stomping players that are used to dominating, getting absolutely destroyed in this game, and they hate it because of that. This game is very campy, and it is very slow, and right now, people are getting used to playing the maps, and they're getting used to, you know, learning everything about the game and learning how to play it, so people are automatically going to be a little bit more campy than usual. I think that camping is going to be a bigger problem right now than it ever is later in the life cycle of this game, but right now it's a very, very slow, methodical, kind of think like Rainbow Six Siege almost. It's that kind of, it's certainly not that slow. I mean, you're still running around like this is Battlefield, but it does have that kind of tactical element that makes the gameplay kind of slower and the game a very hard transition from Battlefield 1. Auto rotation is absolutely broken in this game with how fast the TTK is, and I am very thankful that it's going to be removed in the final build of the game, and I am looking forward to have that removed in the final build, because I've already seen a couple of times in this game where I know that I've been killed by somebody being able to snap to my center mass, and especially with how fast the TTK is, it is very, very evident when that happens to you. So I understand why it's getting taken out of the game, and I think it should have been taken out of the game regardless, but seeing how strong it is in the game right now, it is 100% the right move. Even before or after, it was already 100% the right move, but auto rotation is super strong, and I'm glad to see that it is going to be gone. And finally, and this is the last point of the video, kills are satisfying, but a lot of deaths feel very cheap in this game, and a lot of that is due to the lack of ammo and health regeneration. This might be the most difficult, yet easiest Battlefield game ever created, and I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. And I know that's a bit of an oxymoron and a contradiction, but this game is very, very difficult because it is so easy for everybody to kill you, and that's kind of a casualization of the game that I'm not necessarily a fan of, because I have had a lot of deaths in this game that feel unearned, and it feels like the player that is giving me the death did not do enough to, I guess, have me feel satisfied that say, okay, yeah, I died there, that was my fault, I made a mistake. Really, my only mistake is that I just ran out of ammo, and that's not something that I always have control over, if this is making sense to you all. It feels very, very cheap and undeserved, a lot of the deaths that I get in this game, and even though killing people is extremely satisfying, I know that that potentially could have been me as well, whether I'm out of ammo or I have not gotten a health pack from a teammate. It feels very cheap, and it kind of is irritating sometimes, and I'm not sure how to fix it at this point. But, well, I guess the easier way to fix it is to deal with all the ammo hubbubaloo. But right now, the game's deaths feel very cheap and very, very rage-inducing because you can do as much as you can as a player, but you can't do all of that more when somebody just simply has more ammo than you and they've been camping in a corner the entire time, or they just come out of the, the wet works and, pick you off after you've already killed like 3 or 4 people and you just have no more ammo. If you had ammo, you probably would have been able to kill that person, and that's really kind of frustrating. So that's kind of one of the bigger things that I am interested to see how DICE works around it, or works with it rather. But nonetheless, that is the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. A super long video, just over 25 minutes now, so I'm going to wrap this up as fast as I can. Thank you all so much for watching. I am very curious to know what you think of the beta. I'm very curious to know what you think of the game as a whole, so make sure that you tell me down in the comment section below if you enjoyed the video. Make sure that you drop, I'm trying to go too fast here, make sure you drop a like on the video, and if you're new here and you enjoyed the video enough, why don't you subscribe? It's completely free. Join me on the road to the launch of Battlefield 5, more beta content coming soon, a settings video coming soon, and some general stuff that you should know about this game coming soon, so make sure that you're with me for that. Thank you all so much for watching once again. My name is Nick, or Catalyst. I will see you all another time.